Welcome to Macabre Popcorn, among fans of fantastic cinema, horror, science fiction, and heroic fantasy. Here we explore the classics, compare the remakes, and decipher the works that thrill our imagination. Prepare your popcorn. Let's dive together into the strange and wonderful. Nosferatu and Dracula are often associated with vampire myths, but they have different origins and contexts. Here is a comparison which highlights their differences. Firstly, origin and creation. Dracula created by Irish writer Bram Stoker in his novel Dracula, published in 1897. Dracula is an aristocratic tale living in Transylvania, partially inspired by Vlad the Impaler, a historical prince known for his cruelty. Nosferatu, character from the film Nosferatu, eine Symphonie des Grauens in 1922, directed by F.W. Murnau. Nosferatu is in fact an unofficial adaptation of Dracula. The creators had not obtained the copyright for the novel, so they changed some elements. The name Dracula becomes Count Orlok, and other details are changed to avoid prosecution. Physical appearance. Dracula. He is generally described as charismatic and attractive. He has a human appearance, a sophisticated elegance, with often luxurious clothes. His charm is a weapon to attract his victims. Nosferatu. Count Orlok is monstrous and frightening. He is bald, with prominent teeth, often incisors and not canines, pointy ears and a lean figure. His appearance is much less human and more beastly. 3. Behavior and nature. Dracula. Dracula is an intelligent, manipulative predator, but he is also cultured. His way of life reflects his noble stature. He invites his victims to his castle and seduces them before striking. He is immortal, but vulnerable to certain objects: crosses, daylight, stakes, holy water. Nosferatu. Count Orlok is more animal, a more primitive and instinctive predator. He often acts alone, and his appearance immediately inspires fear. In Nosferatu, he is also sensitive to daylight, a detail which later influences the image of vampires. Theme and symbolism. Dracula. The character often embodies temptation, sexuality, and the Victorian fears of the era in the face of moral decadence. He is a symbol of power, but also of the anxiety linked to foreigners as he comes from Transylvania. Nosferatu. The film expresses more existential and primary fears, such as those of the plague or death. Orlok is seen as a relentless, destructive force, an embodiment of pure evil. 5. Cultural impact. Dracula. He has become the archetype of the vampire in popular culture. The figure of the seductive and aristocratic vampire that we find in countless films and works derives directly from Dracula. Many famous actors like Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee have interpreted Dracula. Nosferatu. Although less popular than Dracula, Nosferatu is an emblematic work of German Expressionist cinema. Its dark and disturbing aesthetic influenced horrific imagery and marked the beginnings of horror cinema. There is also Nosferatu, Ghost of the Night, the melancholic vampire by Werner Herzog in 1979. Werner Herzog revisits Nosferatu and makes it a gothic and hypnotic work. Klaus Kinski plays a solitary Dracula tortured by his immortality, far from the usual charismatic predator of him. Isabelle Adjani in Lucy Harker becomes a tragic heroine ready to sacrifice herself to defeat the vampire. The film is a visual masterpiece: twilight light, natural settings, captivating music by Popol Vuh, a poetic and deadly reinvention of the vampire myth in summary. Dracula is the archetype of the sophisticated and seductive vampire, while Nosferatu, or Count Orlok, is a more primitive and monstrous version. It reflects two ways of approaching the vampire myth, one focused on charm and the other on raw fear. There are plenty of anecdotes and fascinating filming secrets about Nosferatu and Dracula. Here are some highlights. Nosferatu, 1922, an almost cursed shoot, a pirate Dracula film. As I told you previously, director F.W. Murnau wanted to adapt Dracula, but he had not obtained the copyright from Bram Stoker. To avoid prosecution, they changed the names. Dracula became Orlok. Jonathan Harker's name is Hutter, and so on. But that wasn't enough. Bram Stoker's widow sued, and she won. A court ordered the destruction of all copies of the film. Fortunately, some survived, which allowed the film to become cult. Max, was Schreck really a vampire? No, not this one. The actor Max Schreck, who plays Nosferatu, was so disturbing that some thought he was actually a vampire. His name Schreck means terror in German, which fueled the rumors this legend inspired the film Shadow of the Vampire in 2000, where Willem Dafoe plays Max Schreck, who is in fact a real vampire. Daylight, a vampire slayer. Nosferatu is the first film where sunlight kills a vampire. Before that, in mythology, vampires only avoided the sun but did not die from it. This idea will be taken up in numerous works subsequently and will become a classic rule of the vampire myth. Dracula, 1931. Factorial, the film that launched the golden age of Universal monsters. Bela Lugosi, the vampire icon and a curse. The actor Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula, had such an impact on the role that he became a prisoner of the character. He never managed to find a great career, and he died ruined, buried with his Dracula cape as a final tribute. Filming without music. Unlike the modern film, the 1931 Dracula has almost no background music. At the time, sound films were still new, and the studios did not think that music was necessary apart from the credits. This silence gives an even more glacial and strange aspect to the film. A Spanish version, shot at the same time. Universal shot a second version of Dracula in Spanish with another actor in the lead role, Carlos Villarreal. This version was filmed at night with the same staging, but sometimes making technical improvements compared to the English version. Many critics even consider this version better. Visually, these films have marked the history of cinema and continue to influence horror films today. The colors in Nosferatu. F.W. Murnau used a tinting process to differentiate the moods in his film. Blue-green for night scenes, yellow for day scenes, or artificial light and pink-orange for dawn and dusk. In the era of silent cinema, tinting was a common practice to compensate for the absence of natural color and give a more immersive atmosphere. Over time, many copies of the film were lost or damaged. The versions accessible for several decades were often in black and white because they came from poorly restored copies or incomplete. In the 90s, an original tinted copy was found, allowing specialists to restore the film in its original colors. Thanks to this meticulous work, we can today see Nosferatu as Murnau had imagined it. This restored version is the one used today for screenings and quality Blu-ray DVD editions. Therefore, the black and white version that many know is only an altered version of the original film. Klaus Kinski, an uncontrollable vampire. He was famous for his explosive temperament. On the set, he screamed and got into memorable tantrums to avoid his tantrums. Herzog asked the team to let him scream and continue filming normally. Kinski, frustrated at not getting a reaction, calmed down faster. An army of uncontrollable rats. To illustrate the plague that follows Nosferatu, thousands of rats were used. The team had to paint them gray because they were initially white, except that they then refused to move because the paint bothered them during filming. In Delft, the authorities panicked when they saw so many rats and demanded that they all be eliminated after filming. Which of these anecdotes surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments. Thank you for exploring this universe with me on Macabre Popcorn. If you liked this video, leave me a like, share your opinions or your favorite films in the comments, and above all, subscribe so you don't miss anything from the next cinematographic journeys. See you soon for new dives into darkness and imagination. See you soon for another video.